I just want to remind everybody that you can say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game in the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and bet on college hoops until they cut the nets down.
So let's get to the backup quarterback situation, guys. And, G, let's start with you. Just for those who don't, I don't know if we had all the detail. I don't think we did.
We had the up-to money, not the guaranteed money in the contract.
So for Jameis Winston, the guaranteed money is $4 million for this year. He can make up to an additional $4.7 in incentives. Now, we haven't seen, at least I haven't seen them. If you guys have, please tell me what those incentives are. Sometimes we don't even find out. I don't know. Whether it's playing time or if he does play, how well he plays, I don't know.
No idea.
But he can make a max of $8.7 million. Knowing that into, and then toss in the fact that it's been reported that the Browns didn't even offer Joe Flacco a contract. What's your take on the whole situation, G?
Man.
You kind of were Mr. Flacco.
I was Flaccovelli, man.
Yeah.
I talked to him. You know what the crazy part about this is? Do y'all want the real answer? Yeah, y'all want the fake answer.
No, give the real answer.
You want the real answer?
We keep it real.
Okay, we'll keep it real. You know what I always talk to y'all about politics, right? Politics doesn't ever really have anything to do really specifically with it's just, voting or whatever you care about. Political nature, this is a Game of Thrones move right here. And this is very evident. The second that Joe Flacco won that award, his time was done here. The second that he won that award, he was off the board. And the reason that he was off the board is not because he can't play or threw 2 pick sixes or he washed out and flamed out or he had an expiration date. Joe was going to be Joe after he threw the ball that many times. And, it is what it is. It's because that Joe Flacco had already won a large group of the fan base. And I would say about 25-30% of the fan base really felt like Joe Flacco was the dude in waiting. And so when you got Deshaun Watson here, and I always tell people this, man, not so fast. Always look behind what's going behind the scenes, and people think it's conspiracy theories or knee-jerk reactions. No. The reality of the situation is the Cleveland Browns could not afford to have half of the fan base going into the season with Deshaun Watson and the idea of the fans saying, we'll take anybody but Watson. That is tough. You can do that if you got a lame duck quarterback, maybe like Baker, or a guy that you think ain't gonna be about nothing. But if you try and make nuggets to get this guy over the top, and you trying to get people to believe in him, you can't. They made the calculus that look, if we got Joe right in here and we upgrading this roster. And what happens if not just he plays bad, but what happens if he gets banged up 1 or 2 games? Joe come in and light it up for 300 again. You know what that's going to look like? They just couldn't do it. And at the end of the day, they brought in a guy, Jameis Winston. If you look at it, he's a non-threatening guy. He's non-threatening. If Jameis Winston's balls, you're like, it's Jameis Winston. Like, he could throw 40 touchdowns. He could throw you 40 picks too. He's not the long-term answer, and we all know he's not the long-term answer. He is a Jacoby Brissett with better arm talent, right? And it's on a 1-year deal where it's not even looking like it's anything crazy where it's threatening. So if you bring back Joe Flacco, I already told y'all, that's competition. And it's not competition because Joe gonna rock the boat or rock the room. Joe can play the game, and Joe is a leader of men. So you got people in that locker room that's like, well, listen, if he fall off, Joe we like Joe. So the Browns and AB, you know what they did? They took that piece right off the table. we ain't even gonna give you no opportunity to love Joe no more. Thank you for what you've done, and congratulations. Here's your parting gifts, and tell him what he's won.
So I have no idea if there was any bad blood between Watson and Flacco, if Deshaun looked at Joe as legit competition, if he was deterred by fans thinking Joe could possibly be his replacement. I have absolutely no idea. Do I think it played some factor, as you just alluded to? Probably. It probably did. I just don't want to make too big of a deal of it because I think there are more important factors at play here in this decision. I think the reality at the end of the day, and I said this when they rested him in Week 18, whatever Joe was doing on that 5-game stretch was magical. Incredible. It defied all logic. It defied all previous data points we had on Joe Flacco. He had rejuvenated his career to 2012, when since that he'd been just kind of okay, and especially from 2019 to 2022, he frankly wasn't very good. Now, in the playoff game, he came out, threw 2 pick sixes, obviously was bad in the playoff game. I think the Browns looked at this decision and said, okay, are we going to re-sign Joe and get Joe from 2023? Or are we going to get Joe Flacco for essentially the last decade? Was what we saw in that 5-game stretch, and then 6 games if you include the playoffs, a magic lightning in a bottle situation? Or is that Joe Flacco now? And I think when you look at it big picture, the Browns kind of came to the conclusion I'd come to that as good as Joe played, and it was incredible, it wasn't replicable in 2024 in a new offensive system.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If it was, let me ask you this real quick. What if they felt, just bear with me, that it was replicatable? Mm-hmm. Even if it was replicatable, do you think they would have brought him back?
So I was under the mindset that because of the off-the-field stuff too, it brought too much of a distraction. I wanted to roll with DTR. If they said, DTR, you're QB2, I would have been fine with it because I think DTR showed stuff last season. And at the end of the day, if Watson gets hurt, we know what the ceiling of this team is. They can win a few regular season games. Mm-hmm. They can't compete with Mahomes and the Ravens in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you need Deshaun to be healthy. So I do think there are some off-field factors that did play into this. I just don't want to make that the only reason why they didn't bring Joe Flacco back.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
And when you look at Winston, too, the last time he started games, 2021, he threw 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He was a turnover machine early in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Then he got LASIK surgery. And after being able to actually see, people forget about that, he was legitimately, legally blind playing the quarterback position. He won the Heisman as a legally blind quarterback. Think of how absurd that is, right? 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. The same issues Joe Flacco had last year, the turnover problems. Well, yeah, Jameis does have those. But at the end of the day, if they are going to change offensive systems into a new Ken Dorsey air raid situation, Jameis has the arm strength, the arm talent. His track record as a quarterback shows he's willing to push the ball downfield. I think he fits that system a little better than Joe Flacco would. And he's younger and more mobile. So I think for football reasons, there are clear, evident things that point to Jameis being a better fit as QB2 over Flacco, excuse me. Deshaun's QB1, sorry. Jameis over Flacco. But then you take in the off-the-field things too. And for $4 million, Bull.
Yeah.
That's a bargain when you look at the rest of some of these contracts backup quarterbacks have gotten around the league.
I don't know that Flacco's going to get any less. I mean, is Flacco giving
But I'm saying,
more?
Brissett got more guaranteed money. Mariota got more guaranteed money.
Do we know the exact guaranteed money for those guys?
I saw a 6-2 split on Brissett.
I can't imagine Mariota got $6 million guaranteed.
I thought it was 6 up to 10 on Mariota.
That seems insane. Okay, so there's so much to unpack in this story. You guys have hit on most of it. But I think you both missed little tidbits that should be added in. I agree with everything you said about the off-the-field stuff. But I'm going to take it a step further. Not only is Jameis not Joe, the same people that don't like Watson are not going to like Jameis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but a large chunk of that population is also going to not like Jameis. So it's not only that they picked a different quarterback so people don't go, Flacco. Because there will be people, the first time Watson doesn't play well, there will be a small percentage of people at the game chanting Flacco.
Yeah.
We won't hear them because it won't be enough, but there'll be some.
Oh, they'll still,
they've decided they had to move on. However, I think they have, so part of it is, we got Jameis, he's pretty good, and none of these people that are angry about everything with Watson, they're not going to feel any better about Winston, so they're not going to want to push him in the game. But part of it is, what Mike says, is that it's talent. I think the Browns have decided that Jameis Winston, at the very least, can be close to, if not as good, if not better, than Joe Flacco was last year. I don't think they would have just taken anybody.
I agree.
They did make a decision that they wanted, because of Watson's injury history, that they wanted a legitimate backup quarterback who has started games in this league. And like Flacco, Watson has. I think there's two parts of it for the people that are angry About Flacco being left out. Go ahead.
So I didn't really, because I haven't been on social media. So there are
There's
people
a lot
that
of
are
people
angry.
big mad.
There's a lot of people
Big
angry
man.
that Flacco's gone.
I didn't know
Okay,
that.
I got the
for
quarterback
some reason,
contracts.
people are angry that they didn't even offer him a contract. If they decided that Winston was a better fit for whatever reason,
Why would they offer-
Flacco a contract?
I got the guaranteed money, by the way. Brissett, $8 million up to 12.
Yeah.
Mariota, 6 up to 10. So Winston's a way better deal than both of them.
Yeah.
I think Jameis Winston is better than both
He's
of them.
clearly
I
better
agree.
than Mariota.
I mean, Mariota. I wouldn't
Clearly
want him on my
better than
team.
Ma-
He
yeah.
quit on
Clearly, Atlanta.
Atlanta. Quit on him.
Yeah, that's so for bargain deals.
Yeah.
Considering what the other backup quarterbacks have
Right.
got too, we
And
should add into this consideration.
And I mentioned yesterday that, my first impression with Jameis was like, oh, we want him in the locker room. And then I looked into it, and I mentioned yesterday, I Googled, has Jameis grown up the last few years? That was my Google.
He has.
And I read a bunch of articles about how everybody loves him as a teammate. He's really
Yeah.
matured over the last few years. He's a totally different person, which makes sense. When he got into the shenanigans he got into, he was 20, 21, 22. A lot of us got into shenanigans when we were 20, 21, 22.
He works hard.
When you get older, you grow up, you change.
You go look on the internet. He's always throwing. I think he's throwing every single day. Like, it's crazy. He's throwing with young receivers, throwing with guys. Nobody's. He's just out there just in some park, just throwing, working out.
Yeah.
So he has that aspect to him as well. Like, and like you said, like, people forget, Jameis Winston's a first overall pick. A former number 1 overall pick.
He threw for nearly 5,500 yards in a season.
Yeah,
now, granted, he
right.
had 30 interceptions that
Yeah,
year, but
but
he put
Overall,
up
for his
absurd
career,
numbers.
he's got way more touchdowns than the
Oh, yeah,
interceptions.
absolutely.
I think somebody said to me recently, he's thrown more picks in his career than touchdowns. I'm like, no, that's not true.
QBR.
That's not even close.
Yeah, it's not close.
Now, listen, I don't want Jameis to be their starter this year. Nobody wants Jameis to be their starter this year. The Browns are ultimately, if they're going to have great success this year, it's going to be led by Deshaun Watson. It's that simple. But again, in a perfect world, not in a perfect world, he'll play every game.
Dang.
But in a semi-perfect world, if he has to miss 2-3 games, I think Jameis gives them just as good a chance to win. I think what's happened somewhat with the Flacco situation is something that happens with almost everything that gets talked about publicly these days, is everybody picks their camp. There's no gray area. It's a whole black or white thing. And in this case, it's also a race thing, which is
black
part
or
of
white
every
thing,
conversation. But I think there's part of it that's like, I think the people that love Joe Flacco, and I listen, Joe was a guest on my show. He was a guest on this show. I love him. You love him.
I gave him, listen, I'd have made T-shirts up for Joe Flacco.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's face it. I think, in my opinion, I think we gave him credit for being better than he actually was.
So, and I'll go to this.
He was good, but he wasn't like amazing.
He did throw 8 interceptions in 5 games.
As a habitual dater, and I've dated multiple thousands of people, and I'm terrible at it. I'm great, I'm good, I'm married. But here's the thing. Joe Flacco came at a point when we were vulnerable and we needed somebody.
Right.
The Browns were hopeless at that point.
We were down, the season was over. Everybody was going down around us, and that's just like, you dating somebody and you go through a bad breakup and you maybe it's one of your friends that you just you guys were cool, and all of a sudden you started dating for like 3 months, and after 3 months you turn around and look at each other like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It just worked for that time
That's right.
period. And so Joe, I think Joe knew that too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anything away from what Flacco did last year, because it truly was incredible to take a
Especially
team.
compared to what the expectations were.
Exactly, to take
Yeah.
a team from where they were when he stepped in,
Yeah.
with the expectations we all had for Flacco. He was 2-11 in the previous 4 seasons as a starting quarterback before he came to Cleveland. Yeah. He won twice as many games in a 5-game stretch for the Browns last year than he had in the previous 4 seasons when he had starting chances in Denver and New York. He was objectively not good. From 2019 to 2022, comes in last year and rewrites the record book. He's in the record book with Mahomes, Jim Kelly, and Peyton Manning is the only quarterbacks that throw for 1,300 yards and 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns in a calendar month. Like, what he did was incredible, but it was incredible because the expectations were here, and he played at this level. And I don't want to overlook that because Joe, you brought an amazing amount of joy and happiness to the city.
I don't want to knock Joe, but the interceptions were not sustainable either.
And that's my point. At the end of the
we
day,
all ignored it when they were winning.
That's what I'm saying. The winning hid some of the warts around the fact that Joe, and you look at a couple games, ready? Against his Rams, first game. First 3 quarters, brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Fourth quarter.
Right.
Late pick, late interception. He gets sacked for the safety. By far his worst quarter. The game against Chicago, it took a historic fourth quarter, 245 passing yards in the fourth, to beat a Chicago Bears team.
Right.
He threw an interception that got brought down to the 1 yard line.
Right.
Now, that was miscommunication with Cedric Tillman, but he had some fatal flaws that because they won games, we were willing to overlook because they were in the thick of a playoff race.
And at 39, turning 40 towards the end
What
of
are
the
you gonna
season, just because he did it last year out of left field certainly doesn't mean he would do it again.
This is the transition that a lot of people don't like, right? It was always going to come. They started Deshaun Watson off with the baby steps. They hit it. He's behind the scenes. He's working on his life. He's doing another thing. At some point in time, Deshaun Watson was always going to become the most important person in the organization. And what you've seen in the offseason with the quarterbacks that are in the room, with the way that they're going to call offense, with who's going to call the offense and the way they're going to play, you are seeing now that Deshaun Watson has the keys to the franchise. He's always had them, but now it's evident, right? The moves they made has made it evident that they're going to roll with what Deshaun wants to do. It's no coincidence Deshaun is more vocal. He does podcasts now, and he tells you what he feels. And guess what? That's just the way quarterbacks act. That's the way. That's just. We said we wanted to line it up like that. That's just the way it is. But now, Bull,
it's all on him. That's it.
Yeah.
He's got to do it.
Yeah.
There's no more excuses, right? I mean,
that 5,000.
One interesting last tidbit on the Browns quarterbacks before we move on here. Last year, they consistently had only 2 quarterbacks on the active roster because P.J. Walker was coming on and off the practice squad. And originally, so was Joe Flacco. And then once they put him on the roster, they knocked P.J. off.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that for 2024, they're going to have 3 roster spots because I can't imagine they're going to let DTR. Because to put DTR in the practice squad, he's got to clear waivers, which he probably would.
Yeah, there's no way they do that.
Easy.
So they're going to have there's one position where they're going to have one less player this year because they're most likely going to have 3 quarterbacks, unless somebody gets hurt or whatever, have 3 quarterbacks on the active.
That's why Nick Harris is no longer here.
He is. That's part of the next conversation. Go ahead, Anthony.